Wodonga has been proud of its railway heritage and has commemorated significant anniversaries. 2023 marks the 150th anniversary of the arrival of North East Railway, joining Melbourne and Wodonga. Border district trade with metropolitan centres started with river steamboats. Victoria built railways to the Ballarat and Bendigo goldfields, and then continued beyond Bendigo to Echuca, where it tapped the trade of New South Wales and interrupted the river trade South Australia had established. Melbourne newspaper and magazines explained the construction of the North East Railway pictorially, beginning with the minister turning the first sod at Essendon. Sketch artists showed cuttings through the mountains near Kilmore, bridges across creeks and across mighty rivers like the Goulburn at Seymour, the Broken River at Benalla, and the Ovens at Wangaratta. The railway line, like the road, ran through the plains. Railway leagues vied with each other in what essentially became a tussle over the relative importance of either grapes and grain or gold in deciding the route. Locals at Kilmore, Seymour, Benalla, Wangaratta and Chiltern welcomed the arrival of the railway with festivities. This was not only an engineering feat, but a political feat. Mayors and shire presidents spoke about the importance of winning the line to their town and district. There were similar festivities and speeches when the line reached Wodonga in 1873. The Governor, Sir George Bowen, explained that the North East Railway to Wodonga was part of the strategy to win cross-border trade to Melbourne and to invite closer two-colony contact. A branch line was built to Beechworth, which was the biggest town and unofficial capital of the North East. The route through the plains left Beechworth stranded from the main line. It favoured the smaller towns of Wangaratta and Chiltern as it made its way to Wodonga, much to Beechworth's dismay. The Governor, Sir George Bowen, attended the Beechworth opening ceremony. He spoke enthusiastically again about the North East Railway to the state border. The iron link of the railway would bring about the iron link of a federation of the colonies. His friend, Sir Hercules Robinson, the Governor of New South Wales, agreed. After attending the Melbourne Cup together in 1876, the two governors trained with the Lord Mayor of Melbourne to Wodonga. Sir Hercules spoke even more boldly about how railways would weld together a complete dominion of federated Australia. Sir Hercules had seen the railway open to Goulburn and then to Wagga Wagga, as the New South Wales government tried to recapture the trade of the southern and western Riverina. But New South Wales was late in countering Victoria's push to pull the trade of the Riverina to Melbourne. A private broad gauge line linked Echuca to Deniliquin. It was celebrated locally, but was seen in Sydney as a dagger in the heart, taking trade from Sydney to Melbourne. In 1875, 40 steamers and 50 barges brought wool and other produce to the port of Echuca from up, down and across river. It was then railed to Melbourne. Melbourne prospered, receiving grain and wool from inland Victoria and southern New South Wales. The North East line to an unnamed place opposite the town of Albury was intended to bring New South Wales produce, including wine, to the port of Melbourne. The unnamed place might become another Echuca. The North East Railway story, then, is a place story. It involves handshakes and scowls between two colonies and among towns on the route. It provoked colonial and civic jealousies. It was to reframe trade with the Australian colonies. It was to reshape the urban hierarchy of the North East. The arrival of the railway sparked rapid growth in Wodonga. The sketch artist at Wodonga showed the train and temporary station, the monster shed, and open marquees where over 1,000 visitors and locals celebrated. People came in great numbers and in their best clothes. This was a momentous occasion. At least two seemed to have been pleased with the free wine. The governor was accompanied by Lady Bowen, his wife. They stayed overnight at the Huon family's De Kirriloo homestead, where she planted a fig tree to mark the occasion. The next day, the vice-regal pair went across river on a private visit to the vineyards and cellars owned by James Fallon. Husband and wife wanted to find out for themselves why the vineyards had attracted the notice of railway planners. With the coming of the railway, the small hamlet of Belvoir reverted to its original name of Wodonga. Streets became busier. The rising town of Wodonga won new houses and new buildings, such as a post office and branch of the Bank of New South Wales. New jobs were created for railway workers and for carriers plying goods along new roads radiating in all directions from the terminus. Wodonga was the railhead for a district stretching east and west, and even north as far as Gundagai and Tumut. Livestock came across the flats to be railed to the Melbourne meat market. Cheap excursion trains provided border district people with opportunities to visit Melbourne. They could go to concerts, the zoo, or to Flemington horse races in the autumn or spring. The border district well-to-do could visit city doctors and hospitals or send their children to boarding schools. And the city came to the country. City-based professionals like dentists, piano tuners and entertainers brought their services more readily to the border. A circus in 1876 was able to bring a menagerie of animals in 41 rail carriages. Wodonga residents could see and smell elephants. Shoppers had readier access to city goods such as sewing machines, marble statues, clocks and cemetery memorials, proving the railway line champions right in claiming that for every tonne down, a tonne went up. But shops in Albury could buy goods 20 to 50% cheaper than shops in Wodonga because of the railway's concession rail charges to attract New South Wales trade. So most shopping was done in Albury. The colony of Victoria was protectionist. Border customs officers operated at the rail and road crossings. The number of taxable items increased enormously in the 1890s, when with the approach of New South Wales railways, Victoria moved to protect its industries and their products. Many people smuggled. Some wore newly purchased clothes, hats, boots, jewellery across the bridge to avoid paying duty on new items. Sketch artists deplored the lack of privacy for respectable ladies boarding and leaving trains and en route. Officious customs officers rummaged through ladies' unmentionables and nastily interrupted the respectable with inquiries to stop the spread of disease, such as smallpox in 1881. Along the border there was a sharp increase in the number of Victorians moving to New South Wales to escape the depression of the 1890s. By 1901, between a quarter and a half of the population living along the border in New South Wales had been born in Victoria. Newspapers and magazines from Melbourne and Sydney spread new fashions in thinking and dress. That included ideas about the kinds of occupations open to women and whether women should vote. One Wodonga woman, Mrs. William Taylor, shocked the council by successfully challenging its decision not to let her vote in the local election, even though she was on the property owner's roll. Some locals adopted the latest in city fashions. Nevertheless, Melbourne and Sydney outsiders insisted that the rising town of Wodonga still looked like a small, straggling, struggling, old-fashioned looking town. The railway from Sydney reached Albury in 1881. The fine speeches and celebrations attracted crowds of ordinary and fashionable people. Victorian Railways supplied buses to take interstate travellers between Albury and Wodonga. A temporary wooden bridge connected the two rail systems in 1883. It was replaced by a permanent bridge in 1884. The connection of the two railway systems was hailed as a nationally significant moment. Just over 1,000 men, including 2 governors, 2 premiers, and ministers of both governments, attended a celebratory banquet in a large, well-decorated engine shed, specially lit with electricity. But the two colonies had different views about what federation meant. there were still difficulties in crossing the border. In 1886, 2 passenger change stations was deemed inconvenient. Instead, all passengers would change at Albury. Wodonga was to lose its refreshment centre and ladies' lounge. Wodonga Council worried that it might just become an intermediate station, but an extension of the line upstream to Tallangata made it a junction station. More importantly, it would become the sole livestock changing centre. Stockyards were built to marshal stock to go to Flemington. Railways not only performed important transport functions, they also left symbols of modern technology indicative of place prestige. Big water towers at Wangaratta and Benalla served not only the trains but also the towns. Railway sheds at Benalla and Chiltern were sizable, but that at Wodonga was, apart from that at Ballarat, the biggest in non-metropolitan Victoria. Turn-of-the-century postcards epitomised something of the character of the district. They showed that Wodonga had emerged as a railway town, boastfully projecting its images with its railway facilities. The North East Railway changed the urban structure of the North East. Through an unnamed place opposite Albury, it funnelled local produce and that of southern New South Wales to the Port of Melbourne. It brought the city to the country, and the country to the city. It stimulated thinking about federating the Australian colonies. It helped defend and populate the nation. Wodonga has been more than simply a railway town. It has been depicted as an army town, a river town, a border city. But the remnants of the railway remind residents and visitors of the town's gritty beginnings. They help establish something of this place's identity. 150 years after the opening of the North East Railway, we salute again Wodonga's beginnings as a railway town.